Welcome back to the sanctuary of the untold, the only corner of the internet where we pause the relentless spin of the news cycle to listen to the beating hearts behind the headlines. You are watching whatever you need. In the vast, glittering theater of the entertainment world, acts of love are usually performed under the harsh glare of spotlights. They are calculated for maximum impact, designed to trend, and packaged to sell a narrative. But true emotion? True emotion is often found in the quietest corners, in the gestures that were never meant to be seen by the public eye. As the calendar turned and the world ushered in 2026, a story unfolded in Istanbul that defies the cynical rules of celebrity culture. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't a declaration of war between ex-lovers. It was a package, wrapped in silence, sent to a single door. We are talking about Mahassine Merabet and Cenk Torun. Two names that carry the weight of a shared history, a history that many fans still hope has a future. While the rest of the world was popping champagne and making loud resolutions, Mahassine Merabet was executing a plan she had set in motion months ago. It was a plan that involved no cameras, no social media captions, and no publicists. It involved only a piece of art, a handwritten note, and a promise kept. Today, we are going to open that box. We are going to reconstruct the scene in Cenk Torun's mother's living room, a space usually reserved for the most intimate of gatherings. We will witness the tears of a mother, the stunned silence of a son, and the incredible grace of a woman who chose integrity over presence. This is not just a story about a gift, it is a masterclass in how to love with dignity from a distance. But before we untie the ribbon on this emotional journey, I have a question for you, the beating heart of our community. Do you believe that a connection with a partner's family should end just because the romance has paused? Can you honor the mother without holding the hand of the son? If you appreciate these deep, soulful explorations of the human condition within the lives of the stars, please ensure you are subscribed to whatever you need. And for those who wish to walk even closer with us, to support our research and join our inner circle of storytellers, the join button is waiting for you below. Your support is the ink in our pens. Now let us step into the warmth of that New Year's Eve. To truly understand the weight of this gesture, we must first set the stage. New Year's Eve at the home of Cenk Torun's mother is not merely a party, it is an institution. According to the chroniclers of Istanbul's social elite, this is a night held sacred. It is a refuge from the corporate sponsorships and the flashbulbs that define the rest of their year. There are no red carpets here, no brand ambassadors, no influencers live streaming the buffet. There is only a small, tightly knit circle of affection, the clinking of crystal glasses filled with tea or wine, and the warmth of genuine laughter. For years, there was one name that was etched permanently onto this guest list, Mahassine Merabet. Regardless of the storms that raged in the tabloids, regardless of how diverging career paths or public narratives tried to pull her and Cenk apart, her bond with the matriarch of the Torun family appeared unbreakable. She was not just Cenk's partner, she was a daughter of the house, a fixture at the table, a voice in the choir of their family memories. However, as 2025 bled into 2026, the chair usually reserved for Mahassine sat empty. The absence was palpable, a silence where there used to be a melody. But let us be clear, this was not a silence born of neglect. It was not the indifference of a star who had moved on to brighter lights. Those who know Mahassine best whisper that her heart was torn. She had, months prior, given her word to attend another gathering. For a woman like Mahassine, whose character is built on the bedrock of old-world values, a promise is not a variable, it is a constant. Backing out would have felt like a betrayal of her own soul. She chose the heavy weight of integrity. She chose to honor her word, even if it cost her the personal comfort of being where her heart likely wanted to be. Declining the invitation to Cenk's mother's home broke her heart a little, sources say, but she refused to break a promise to ease that ache. It is this specific quality, this unwavering moral compass, that defines the events that followed. People who truly understand the architecture of Mahassine Merabet's character know one thing: her physical absence does not mean she disappears. She is not the type of person to simply send a text saying can't make it, and then fade into the night. She finds a way to be present without stepping into the room. She understands the power of a symbol. So as the evening at Cenk's mother's home unfolded, with the soft hum of jazz in the background, the scent of roasted chestnuts in the air, and the gentle murmur of family gossip, the doorbell rang. It was an intrusion that would stop the room cold. It announced a delivery, but this was not your standard courier drop-off. It wasn't a bouquet of generic flowers dispatched by an assistant with a corporate credit card. It wasn't a pre-arranged fruit basket wrapped in impersonal cellophane. It was a package swaddled with extreme care. The wrapping itself whispered of the hands that had prepared it, meticulous, respectful, personal. It arrived like a sigh, delicate and profound. Thanks to the discreet recollections of those privileged enough to be present that night, we can reconstruct the atmosphere of that precise moment. The conversation softened. The music seemed to step back, acknowledging that something significant was arriving. Cenk's mother, the matriarch, moved to the center of the room to receive it. Her guests held their breath, sensing that the energy of the night was about to shift. As Cenk's mother began to lift away the paper, peeling back the layers of protection, the room went still. From that box emerged not a luxury toy for the privileged, not a designer scarf, or a piece of jewelry. What emerged was a singular work of art. Months earlier, long before the fever and chaos of the holiday season had gripped the city, Mahassine had quietly commissioned a piece. She had reached out to an artist, whose identity remains a guarded secret, and given them a specific task, to capture the essence of the person Cenk's mother treasures most in this world. Her son. The portrait was a drawing, done by hand, raw and visceral. The artist had captured more than just the bone structure of Cenk Torun's face, they had mapped the geography of his soul. There was the familiar profile, yes, the handsome lines that fans adore. But there was something else, a look in the eyes. It was a layered calm, a quiet fire, a vulnerability that is rarely seen on magazine covers. It was the kind of gaze a mother recognizes instantly because she saw it first. And perhaps it was the kind of gaze that a woman who once loved him deeply might still carry burned into her memory. To gift a mother a portrait of her child is a move of immense emotional intelligence. It says, "I see what you love and I honor it." It removes the giver from the equation and places the spotlight entirely on the bond between mother and son. It was a gift that spoke of deep, abiding respect. This level of thoughtfulness is rare in our fast-paced, digital world. It makes you pause and think about the last time you put real thought into a gesture. I want to ask you, the whatever you need family. Have you ever received a gift that made you cry not because of its price, but because of its meaning? Or have you ever sent one? Share your stories in the comments below. We read every single one, and your experiences add so much depth to our community. And please, if you are finding yourself moved by this story, take a second to hit the like button. It helps us share these narratives with more people who need a little hope. For those who want to help us keep the lights on and the stories flowing, clicking that join button makes you a vital part of our mission. Your support is the heartbeat of this channel. If the portrait was the body of the gift, the handwritten note that accompanied it served as its breath. In a world that defaults to quick texts, emojis, and auto-generated well wishes, Mahassine chose the permanence of a pen. She sat down, perhaps at a quiet desk in her own home, and let the ink flow. Her script was described as confident yet warm, the handwriting of a woman who knows her own mind. The message, according to those who saw it, was brief but sharp enough to pierce even the most jaded of hearts. It read something close to this. "Auntie, forgive me for not being there with you. I made a promise long ago, and had to honor it tonight. Please accept this small New Year's gift, may the coming days bring you health, calm, and joy." Let us dwell for a moment on that first word. Auntie or tease in the cultural context. In our culture, that single word is a fortress. It holds a world of respect, tenderness, and established hierarchy. It signals that, beyond what the tabloids chatter about, beyond the relationship status updates, the bond with an elder remains intact and sacred. By using it, Mahassine was claiming her place in the family structure, not as an outsider but as kin. Asking for forgiveness for an absence she could have easily explained away with a quick excuse paints a portrait of a woman who values accountability. And wishing blessings without fanfare. That paints a portrait of a woman who has stepped past resentment, if it ever existed at all, and chosen grace. It was a bridge laid across a river made turbulent by rumors, built with the sturdy stones of kindness. Back in the living room, a hush lingered long after the note was read. Witnesses say Cenk's mother couldn't stop the tears once the full weight of the gesture hit her. She looked at her son's face captured in lines and shadow, then down at the handwriting of the woman who had once sat at her table. She pressed the frame against her chest, holding it close to her heart, as if trying to physically absorb the love that had been sent. Her voice trembled when she finally spoke. "What a thoughtful soul," she whispered. In that single sentence, the whole room felt the power of a kindness done without spectacle. She didn't just politely accept the gift and place it on a side table, she let it claim a prominent place in front of those whose opinions matter. She validated Mahassine's presence. Later, in private moments away from the guests, we are told she described Mahassine in words that deserve to be etched in stone: a rare woman. Open-hearted. Impossibly considerate. These phrases, passed along by those who keep their ears near the pulse of the social scene, make one thing abundantly clear: for Cenk's mother, Mahassine never fully stepped out of the family circle. She may not be sitting in the chair, but she is still in the room. And what about Cenk Torun? That is the question that haunts every romantic heart reading between the lines. Where was he when the wrapping paper fell to the floor? No one can confirm if he was standing right there at the moment of the unveiling, or if he entered the scene moments later. But whispers from those who know him intimately say that the reaction was profound. Once he learned of the package, once he saw the portrait and realized how deeply the gesture had touched his mother, he chose silence. He didn't make a joke to lighten the mood. He didn't perform a speech. For a long while, he simply asked for the room to himself. A confidant said, quietly, that Cenk wasn't surprised by Mahassine's kindness. He knows the size of her heart better than anyone. He knows her capacity for grace. But seeing the way it lit his mother's eyes moved him in a way he hadn't anticipated. Sometimes, silence tells more than any carefully shaped public statement. It was not the silence of indifference, it was the silence of impact. It was the sound of a man realizing that the woman he once walked beside is still walking with dignity, even when paths diverge. And you know how this goes: a moment like that, no matter how private, doesn't stay locked in one apartment forever. It traveled as warm things do, passing from voice to voice, from guest to confidant, eventually finding its way to the impatient screen of the internet. When the story broke, social media split into two familiar camps. One group hailed Mahassine as the embodiment of elegance, a modern icon of how to separate human bonds from the tangled narratives of romance. They praised her for showing that a breakup doesn't have to mean a breakdown of all relationships. Another group, the romantics armed with hope, read the portrait as a definitive sign. They saw it as proof that the threads remain unbroken, that the line between them is still humming with electricity. A sentence spread like wildfire across posts and comments: some bonds aren't severed, they just fall silent for a while. Throughout this swirl of speculation, Mahassine Merabet remained a shadow. There was no Instagram story revealing the gift. No reposts fishing for attention or praise. Only quiet. Friends say that silence was deliberate. She doesn't want to lay a burden on anyone, least of all a family she respects. She meant this as a New Year's wish born from gratitude, nothing more. It is precisely that restraint which lifted a simple offering into a gesture of unconditional affection, free of any demand to be seen or applauded. What hangs on the wall now in Cenk's mother's home is more than just a piece of art. It is a testament to a way of loving that does not need to possess. It is a reminder to all of us that we can honor the people we once walked beside without stealing steps from their current path. Does this mean reconciliation is on the horizon? No one can answer that honestly, not even the people involved. But on that cold winter night, in a city that so often chooses spectacle and noise, something quieter won. A mother was reminded of the boy she raised. A woman kept her promise to another engagement and still found a way to be present where it mattered. And somewhere in the distance, a man who has lived through the noise felt the rare comfort of a gesture that spoke with no ulterior motive. Thank you for joining us to unpack this beautiful moment on Whatever You Need. We hope it warmed your heart as much as it did ours. If you believe in the power of quiet kindness, please leave a star emoji in the comments. And remember, if you want to support independent, thoughtful storytelling, the join button is right there. Until next time, may your promises be kept and your gifts be given with love. Goodbye.